So a quick Condor update. We are anticipating to cut RC2 this week, may roll to Monday or Tuesday rather. Monday is a holiday, so a lot of the core devs will be on observing the holiday on Monday in the US. But the goal is to get an RC2 cut within the next 2 to 3 days. The JavaScript SDK should be ready by Friday. Jan is pushing hard to have that ready over at the Casper Association. So we should be able to cut a release of the JS SDK. I know that there are folks that are really waiting for that, and apologies on the delay there. It's a core piece of infrastructure that we need before people can start evaluating. Once those two pieces are dropped, we're going to start our outreach for the public, for the DevNet, and start going to like phase 2 of the DevNet outreach. Make and Audra have access to Condor, right, Mache? You got access to the DevNet right now. So you've been looking at Condor already, correct?
No, so far I'm using the code from the repo.
Okay. 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 I mean, we can absolutely get you access, early access, but yeah, the code is also there. It's trivial to spin up a network. So we want to get access to the Make team so they can start looking at their code in depth. They've already been evaluating it, so we're getting feedback. Yeah. So we're using, Make is kind of like on the front lines in terms of Condor readiness. So we want to make sure they have plenty of time with it. So looking for RC2 to hit the DevNet sometime next week, and then we'll open it up to more folks like Arcadia and others that are building wallets now that we've addressed like our first pass of issues. We anticipate there's probably going to be an RC3 as well. But the bug fix find or the issue fix find has been progressing nicely. Any questions that I can answer?
Excellent.
No?
Okay. Joe Davies, Hodl Shark, is there any questions from the community as well? Telegram. We'll bring those in if they come in.
I'm speaking on mute. Hello. Yeah, so not at the moment. No questions from Telegram. We put out an Ask Casper, hashtag Ask Casper, but no questions at the moment. I'll continue scanning for those questions. Should any come in, I'll relay them to you guys here.
I think the point here is important for the people here, but also, there will be quite significant sequence of information, obviously around RC2 and how to get access to DevNet for individuals or for projects that need to get it. And then also what the association will do, and I think it has been announced, I'm not sure. It will have a series of systematic interactions, both with validators, focusing on the consequences for validators, as well as then for projects and devs, specifically with a deep dive on some of these new things in Condor. So that's going to be coming up.
Yeah, lots of prep being made for the ecosystem developers as well. Absolutely, and stay tuned for all that. That's going to be shared across all of the channels. Some of it has been out already as well, as you mentioned, Ralf. Great. So thank you, Medha, for that update. I do see we have Michael Steuer from Make, and Michael, I'm sure you, as always, have some very relevant updates for the community.
Well, I hope they're relevant. Let me share my screen. Here we go. So I'll focus my updates. I think it's starting here. Infinity mirror. I don't know what that means. There we go. So I'll focus my updates primarily on what's relevant to developers, since that's the subject of this call. But there are some of our sort of user-facing applications that have been updated with functionality that you as a developer should know about. So first thing is actually Casper Wallet, which I'm not sure if I open this, you'll see. Yes, you do. We have added a much requested feature, which is support for ledger devices. So you will now be able to connect your ledger to Casper Wallet, either via USB or Bluetooth, depending on the ledger device that you have, and interact with any dApp that supports Casper Wallet, even if it hasn't specifically integrated ledger support or is using Casper.click. This functionality is live right now on desktop in the browser extension, and is coming soon to the mobile Casper Wallet as well. Then focusing on Casper.live, and we've talked about this a little bit in sort of preview in the previous dev call. We're trying to make the block explorer as user-friendly as possible. And we think we're making good strides against sort of what the industry standards are. And just to remind people what those are, if you look at Etherscan, which is probably one of the predominant block explorers in the space, as a retail user, you come here and you look at transactions, and all you see is hash, 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 etc. It doesn't really tell you anything. Similarly, SoulScan, you look at transactions, it's a table full of hashes. Even if you go into the transactions, there's really not much to learn from it. The average user wouldn't be able to tell you what's actually going on this blockchain. So now come to Casper.live. On the front page, immediately you see the latest transactions, and it actually tells you, even in this very tiny table, that what transactions are. It shows you that this was an undelegated transaction, was performed by this account. They undelegated from this validator, and they interacted with the auction contract. Similarly, any other contract will be shown like that. Transfers. I transferred a certain amount from this account to that account. The Fatso feeder app is notoriously active again on the network, so there's a lot of that traffic going on. And that's just sort of on this level. So if we go to specific types of deploys or transactions, so we talked about a transfer. What we've done essentially is take every transaction and we've split the sort of presentation in action and results, right? So the action is actually what you submit to the network, and the result is then interpreting what happened when that deploy got processed by the protocol. So the action in this case was the submitter transferred a certain amount of Casper, and the result very easily in this sort of very simple case, obviously, is that amount of Casper was transferred from the sender's account to the receiver's account. As we continue to look at more complex things, this is the auction contract. You can see immediately in the deploys listed with that contract what's going on, and you see delegations by certain people from certain validators, et cetera, You don't have to dig in to actually see what's going on. If you look at a specific deploy, the action is delegated certain amounts to safe and steady staking in this case. The result of that is that amount was transferred from the user's account to the auction pool. Again, we used to have this little transfer table at the bottom, which was highly confusing. Now it's all sort of grouped and summarized in this result area. It gets interesting when you get to tokens and DeFi. So looking at the Shibu contract, for example, again, you can immediately see what's going on with these tokens in the deploy table. But then when you look at specific actions, with, in this case, CP18 tokens, somebody submitted a withdrawal action, but then what was the result? That there was a certain amount transferred and another amount was burned, because this is from a swap contract. Same thing with NFT tokens. This is the Casper Punks contract. You can see in the table transfers of a certain NFT, approving transfers, different types of actions, and you can see what the contract is, who the user is, what the NFT was. And then if you look at NFT transactions, normally you would see it's just a merge action that's being called. In this case, you can see what exactly happened and even which NFTs were burnt and by whom. I'll keep going. This is an example of the Casper market contract. Similarly, again, you get to see exactly what's going on in the deploy summary. Once you go into detail, somebody accepted an offer for NFT 840 of the Casper Studio collection, and it was accepted from this buyer on Casper Market, and as a result, a certain amount was transferred to the seller, another amount was transferred to to the market fee, and obviously the NFT itself was transferred from the seller to the buyer. Very clear. And then this is a really fun one, wasn't deploys, which used to be listed as just a wasn't deploy where you really can't see anything that was going on. Now get fully explained as to what happens in the background. So somebody submits a wasn't deploy, and you see in this case there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different sort of results that were executed as a result of this wasn't deploy, which used to be completely blind, and again on other networks in similar circumstances would still be completely blind. So you as a developer, even if you are required to call functionality via wasn't deploy, you can still actually use this information for debugging or present it to your end users, because obviously this is powered by the Casper Cloud API, and you as a developer can have access to the same information as well.
This is awesome, Michael.
Thank you. And let's keep going. So that's on the front end. On Casper.live and Casper Wallet. So let's talk about our developer tools. So Casper Cloud has had an update today, actually, with added functionality of an API for known accounts. So you know already that we have the Casper account info standard, which users can use to identify their account. Right, here's an example: verified owner is Kubli. They've used the account info standard. Well, that's standard in order to self-identify. But there are a lot of accounts that haven't used this, and those are predominantly things like exchanges and other known accounts, where it would be useful to be able to say, hey, well, this is OKX, or this is some other exchange, etc.
Who validates this information?
So this information, so if you actually, I can probably post a link, or maybe I have some colleagues on the chat. Maybe Eeyore, you can post a link to the GitHub for the account info standard that explains exactly how it works. But you essentially need to place a JSON file on the URL that's presented here. And then call a contract that links your account to that URL, and that because you need to basically have access to both the account and the URL in order for it to be validated. So we added an API that allows for sort of known account information in a centralized way. So essentially, if you're building an application, you want to be able to show, well, these are transfers to or from a known exchange. Now you can get that information from Casper Cloud as well. On Casper Build, which is really the sort of the self-service console for Casper Cloud and Casper.click, we released Joe, not 2.0, but 0.2, essentially 0.2 this week or today. The new functionality here is a few things. There is, hold on, I'll edit this instead. In Casper.click, you are now required to link your Casper.click key to a Casper Cloud key, so that's in essence the Casper.click, since it also interacts with the network via Casper Cloud, it counts towards your Casper Cloud API calls. This will also be helpful when we launch in a near future version detailed analytics for developers, so that they can track exactly their usage of APIs and unique users and things like that. If you don't have a Casper Cloud key yet, but you do have a Casper.click key, then you should have received an email that notified you that your Casper Cloud key was automatically linked to your Casper.click key. We've also added more granular roles. So if you have a multi-user account, or you're running an organization and you want to invite developers or colleagues to do certain things within your environment, you can now give them specific access to only manage Casper.click keys, for example, but not cloud and subscription, etc. this is live and available. The next update will include self-service tier management, so you can sort of work on your or change the access tiers that you have to Casper.click and Casper.cloud. And then after that, we're looking at, as I just mentioned, detailed analytics for developers so that they can essentially have a good source of analytical data on their applications on the Casper network. Mentioning Casper.click, we also just recently released an update with a number of improvements and fixes. One of those improvements is actually a separate component that users can use to show identicons with accounts. So we just talked about the identity. So essentially being able to show a account with the accompanying identity as a React component. Next up for Casper.click is the integration of social accounts. So right now, if you want to add an account, essentially you only have wallets here to choose from. You will soon be able to log in with your Google account, your Facebook account, your Twitter, or I should say X account, etc., making your applications really accessible to anybody, even if they've never set up a crypto wallet before. So this will really help open up sort of the ecosystem for onboarding new non-crypto native users in a very user-friendly way, and essentially with a single click, they'll have a self-custodial wallet and can start using your app.
This is awesome.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of like developer feedback, and without tooting our own horn, but tooting our own horn a little bit. One of the nice things we heard just this week was a developer saying, like, I've been developing on Solana for years. Casper is so much easier to develop on thanks to all this. And I wish I'd known about it years ago. So it's not just to toot our horn, but also with a request for you guys essentially to go out there and let that be known, right? Because I think we are putting a very developer-friendly environment and ecosystem forward here that unfortunately not enough blockchain developers know about yet. Two more final points. Casper.name, which we announced last month as well, is well underway. Just to recap, this is Casper.name will be a name service on Casper that is accessible not just on the Web3 environments, but will be available as a DNS-based solution as well, in partnership with a company called D3. So we are applying with ICANN for the .CSPR top-level domain. The technical integration is underway. Contracts are being developed actually with Odra in partnership with Odra. For developers, this will mean there will be possibilities to resolve names in a number of different ways, and in both directions, by the way, whether it's on-chain, off-chain via Casper.cloud, or in fact via DNS. So this will be maximally compatible with whatever is being built out there, and a really nice bridge between so the Web3 and the Web2 worlds. And then just like everybody else, and as Medha just mentioned,
could you give one use case for that? Because I'm not seeing it at the moment. Could you give a use case for that?
Yeah, sure. So if you are a company, right, or you're and you're launching an app, and you can have a single unified name in essence, right? You can say, well, I'm Coca-Cola.CSPR. Type it into your browser. That's where your app lives. Type it into your wallet. That's where your account lives.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So it's just a nice name for the address of the contract.
Correct. So if you're not familiar with name services, check out ENS on Ethereum, for example, where you can have a .eth address. that only works on Ethereum wallets, right? It's not something that you can type into your browser without additional plugins, etc. The nice benefit here is that it's going to be an actual DNS-based domain. So if you want to run, like I've been saying Web 2, but it's really also Web 1, right? If you want to run your FTP server or your Gopher server on .CSPR address, you could. For the ones who are old enough to remember that. So we are hard at work with Condor, and that means on all fronts, obviously on the developer tools that we provide with Cloud and Click, making sure that it's as seamless as possible and possibly entirely seamless for you guys to upgrade without too much hassle. We're in fact aiming for no hassle at all, so that's the goal. And we're working on all the various sort of SDKs and libraries that we maintain. So we maintain 3 of the Casper SDKs, Go.net and PHP. There's all the libraries around other clients like the Casper event standards that we have various a TypeScript and a Go SDK for, I think, and a ton of other libraries, SDKs, and contracts. We're tracking about 30 or so, or 30 to 40 different components that we need to touch up for Condor. That's it on my end. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one. So you started with showing us list of deploys. There was this FATSO bloat. I wanted to ask you how your infrastructure took it.
Oh, just fine. We've I don't recall the exact numbers, but we've tested our infrastructure at something like, if I recall correctly, like 10,000 requests per second or something. Good luck finding a blockchain that can generate that.
Yeah, I think it's the highest throughput blockchain out there, isn't it? Like around 220K or so per second.
Listen, and then this is like I said, we've tested it at something like 10,000 sustained, not even just a quick pump and then let go, right? So sustained loads, and that's fine. And if and when Casper reaches more than 10,000 requests per second, we can scale things up quite easily. But thanks for the question, Maciej.
Thank you, Michael. I actually have a quick question myself. And I really love the human understandable view of CSPR.live. It helps people like me, and obviously helps the overwhelming majority of people that are not blockchain developers understand what they're seeing on CSPR.live. But my question is, did you ever consider leaving a legacy view in place for those that maybe enjoyed just looking at a bunch of numbers?
You think there are those people? I mean, people that enjoy to look at just a bunch of numbers, I would assume are like API users or something, and they can use Casper Cloud and compose their output however they want to. I think people who use a web browser to look at things would rather be able to read and visually see what's going on.
Right. Yeah. I assumed that would probably be the case, but there's probably a few nerds out there that would like to see numbers, but not many. Well,
listen, the numbers are still available, right? Like if like we're saying FATSO feeder and an icon, but if you want to know, hey, well, what's the contract hash? You can go find it. Oh, you know what? I forgot actually one important update that we also added, and that's available both in Casper.live for you guys to look at, as well as if you are a Casper.cloud developer user, you have access to this as well. We added a contract purses API. So now if you go to a contract and it's a contract that takes in payments, for example, like in this case, FATSO feeder, which is why I just thought of that, you see a new section that says contract purses. And from there, you can click through to the purses that belong to this contract. and see the transactions that went in and out of that purse, just as if they were sort of a standalone account, right? So this purse has 10 Casper in it. It looks like there's maybe some automated process that takes out what goes in. But let's see if we can look at the owner purse. Maybe that's where it goes. Well, actually, Maciej is other Maciej is on this call. I think I saw him earlier. So this may be where yeah, this looks like it looks like the deposit purse is paying the owner purse. So there's 31,000 Casper in here, and like that you can look at any contract and see what happens. I don't know if Shibu has a purse. They do not. I think they sent their stuff to an account. Let's see. I know that, for example, the Casper market has a purse, right? So contract purse, deposit purse, and you can see all the transactions going into the market.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
So one is, I want to start to develop a project within Casper ecosystem, and I was wondering if there is a dev community that I could join somewhere.
Yes, there is. Yes, so there's a CSPR developer group on Telegram where there's about 200 of people like you in that group, as well as our support engineers who can help answer questions and respond to inquiries, etc.
Is this on the official Telegram, one of those?
It's let me find it.
We'll drop the link here in the chat.
Yeah,
I just dropped one.
Excellent.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's it. Everybody's dropping it. That's the link. Other questions?
Yeah, just join the group so I don't lose this link. What was the other question? I kind of forgot. Is there? I heard a while ago that Casper had the intention of. Fuck, I can't remember exactly what I wanted to ask. Give me a second. You can continue.
Yes, sir. Yeah, if there's somebody else who has a question, we'll answer that first. And
Yeah, so
remember.
I have a question here from the community on Telegram. I'm not a dev. Are there any courses, training, education programs you guys suggest for me to look at if I want to start working with Casper blockchain? Didn't you run an education program, Michael?
We did. So, I mean, you're referring to what we did in Turkey, where
Correct.
we actually did we ran a workshop at a university, and we're looking at more of those. We're also looking at doing some workshops together with the association, which we'll announce soon. But for this dev who's asking, it really comes down to what your level of experience is with other environments. And the nice thing about the Casper built environment is that you can actually do a lot without having any blockchain developer experience, right? So Casper Cloud is straight up REST API. There's examples if you go in here. Every API is explained, and you can try out. Similarly, the streaming API is WebSockets, which is also just common sort of Web 2 technology, right? So you can get your real-time updates into your application just via JSON over WebSockets. And Casper.click is a JavaScript SDK. So it's all fairly straightforward, as well as standard interfaces, standard technologies that any developer that has had experience in other environments should have no trouble using and be productive essentially like the same day.
Thank you, Michael. So some beginner courses and more advanced courses potentially coming in collaboration with the association in the future. So look out for those.
Correct.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I remembered what I wanted to ask. It was a while ago. I remember on a Casper communication talking about the cost of the transactions and making them more predictable or stable. Is there any advancements on that? Because I'm wondering how, for example, if I'm creating a contract that relies on a bunch of transactions per day, and how that would play out with the increase of the token price or something like that. Because it would definitely play a role, right?
That's the question to Medha, I think.
Could you repeat the question there real quickly?
So to have the price or the gas price or however you call it there more predictable, like imagine a project that is generating a bunch of transactions per day, a contract that is generating a bunch of transactions per day, and with the increase of the token price, how would that play out with the transaction costs? If
Right.
that would
Right, that's right. So this is a feature in Condor, and we are calling it. I have to remember what the name is. Can someone refresh my memory on the name? Because I have the intuition name is coming up, but that's not what we're using from a marketing perspective. But we're basically eliminating gas fees in terms of the net cost to the developer. So you can think of it as your fee purse will the CSPR would be locked in protocol for a duration of time for security purposes, and then it will return to your purse by the protocol. And so you can imagine in a world where you, like any other web application, you understand what your throughput or your transactional requirements are going to be, right? So everybody has to provision infrastructure costs to support the number of usage, the amount of usage you're having. And the blockchain isn't any different, right? So you think, okay, I'm going to get, maybe 1,000 transactions per day. It's a smart contract call, and there's a fixed price in terms of CSPR for a block slot, right? So I get a slot in the block. It costs me 50 CSPR. I'm going to do 1,000 transactions a day. And the lock duration, let's say, is going to be 2 weeks. Right. So you just multiply it out. So the transaction you send on day 1 will come back to you. The gas fees will come back to you on day 14, and then you can reuse it. And so what this enables smart contract authors to do is really, hold that CSPR as a transactional utilization, like reuse it over and over and over again. And as your application scales, you will need to acquire new CSPR. You'll have to acquire it at a higher price, but you're not spending it. You're not burning it in the traditional way. You're holding it. And if you think about in terms of the semantics of the protocol, well, the Casper protocol will give you certain types of value for holding and locking CSPR. You can hold and lock the CSPR and be a consensus participant, and the protocol will pay you out staking rewards. Or you can hold and use CSPR to process transactions in exchange for locking your CSPR in protocol. So this is how the protocol gives you value. In one case, you're getting value back in terms of staking rewards. In the other case, you're getting value back in terms of processing a transaction and committing that transaction to global state. But in both cases, it's a CSPR lock. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I get it. I still have some doubts in how that would play out in a larger scale, but yeah, in terms of data storage and that must have some cost associated to it. So I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah. With data storage, and I have to go back and check what the gas cost table looks like. I believe data storage you will have to pay, just because we cannot allow that to be an attack vector, right? Like we just don't want people to abuse data storage in that way. So I suspect data storage will still have a real cost associated with it. Like if you want to store a PDF or something crazy like that, that's still going to cost you money, right? Like cost you CSPR. But for all other intents purposes, we wanted to stabilize the cost of transactions. And so we thought, one of the ways to stabilize it is like at the cost of money. So it stabilizes, like in a naive way, you can say zero. In a more complex way, you say, well, there's a small opportunity cost for otherwise having staked the CSPR. That's my real cost for the transactions.
Yeah, I think it's clear. So there's still work being done at it about this, and it's not, everything is not defined yet, right?
The mechanics are defined. So the way Casper works is the mechanics are defined in code, but the configuration, the mechanism, and the details around how much CSPR, what the duration of the lock period is, the price for all the slots, that is all configured and tunable. That's one of the principles of how we have architected the protocol, in that, the mechanics are in code, the actual, how things work, but then the fine tuning of the protocol, that all happens within the chain specification. And it's a really important point to note that the validators and the community really do own the protocol, because the chain specification is clear text, right? You don't need to know the inner workings of the source code to make a material and significant change to the protocol. Even in the gas mechanisms, we have 3 mechanisms defined. We have the current mechanism, we have a burn mechanism, and we have the new mechanism. And all 3 of those are defined in the chain specification. So if the community decides they want to go to a full gas fee burn, they can do that through a trivial change if the validators decide that's how they want to go, right? So much of the features of the protocol and the really important governance related items are all managed via the chain specification. And that's very intentional, because we want it to be owned by the community and decentralized by the community.
So we will be able to turn on this mechanism that locks gas, and if we don't like it, we can just turn it off.
Yep. You can turn it off, you can change it, you can switch to burn, you can change the interest rate. I mean, you can change the seniorage rate, it's in the chain spec. The block times, the number of validators, the minimum delegation amount, like all the delegator limit, everything is in the chain specification. And the make team and others know how to propose a release. So we at Casper Labs really don't control the network at all. It's all in the chain specification. It's a clear text file.
Yeah, and I have also another answer to you, Andre. So from the perspective of the smart contract developer, most of the calls that when you write smart contracts, you want to do things like transfer of tokens, record something, validate a bit of data, and make a record. Most of those things cost, when you deploy it, like 0.2 Casper, 0.7, sometimes 1.5. So these are this is very cheap so far, because Casper is 3 cents, and even if the price goes like 10 times, it's still cheaper than Ethereum.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. But if it goes 100 times, then it's not trivial anymore. The value. But anyways.
Champagne problems.
Yes.
That's what I call those.
Let's hope. So,
let's get there first. But the idea really was with this gas mechanism, and Matt Doty, who was one of the guys from Ethereum who actually designed the gas market, was the one that really started talking to me about this a couple of years ago. And Matt Doty's long-term desire, as well as mine, was to decouple, right, the value, the price of the token from the price of a transaction. And this mechanism of where you reuse the CSPR, right, is a way we figured out to maintain the security of the network for denial of service and infinite loop, because that's all gas really does, as well as, kind of streamline the UX.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Thank you. Thanks for the questions. We're at the top of the hour, so unfortunately, I'm going to have to wrap this up here. Thank you to Marche and for the updates on Odra, and Michael Steuer, of course, with all of the CSPR suite updates. and all of our guests, and to the community for joining today. We'll be back on our X space, formerly Twitter, in 2 weeks from today for a more general discussion about whatever you'd like to ask us. So feel free to book that into your calendar and come and join us on stage for a chat over on X in 2 weeks from today. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll end it there. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Everybody.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
Medha. Bye, Joe.